Hola, soy yo, Vicky, otra vez. It's me, Vicky, again. Y en el video de hoy vamos a mirar parte 6 de los videos para ver tu nivel de español. So, in this video, we're going to look at part 6 of this series of videos to look at your level in Spanish as compared to GCSE level. Okay, so in this video, we're going to be looking at ser and estar, and we're going to be looking at relative pronouns, which I'll explain what they are later, and we're going to be looking at interrogatives, or in other words, questions, how to make questions in Spanish. Okay, so we're going to start with ser and estar, and this is a perennial problem, of course, and I would imagine that in GCSE Spanish you are expected to know the difference between ser and estar. Now, if you have the break the language barrier level 1 book, this is explained in great depth. Ser and estar has gone into quite a lot of depth in level 1, and on page 17 you have the mnemonic print and flomits, which I also have on a video, so I will in the description box put the links for the different parts of ser and estar, the different videos. I've done quite a few videos on ser and estar, because not only in level 1 but in all the series of books, every time we do a new tense, going to the past tense, the different past tenses, the future tense, etc., even the subjunctive in level 4, there's always a section on ser and estar, because it's just one of those things that obviously we find difficult, because ser and estar are the two verbs to be in Spanish. We don't have two verbs to be in English, and in fact no other language has two verbs to be, so it's not only us that struggle with it. Everybody does. Every other nationality does. So, if you've got the Break the Language Barrier Level 1 book, or any of the Break the Language Barrier books, there'll be some section on ser and estar in there, but the greatest depth is in level 1, and the mnemonic, the caprints and flomits. Now, I think a big mistake that a lot of people make is they think, oh, well, ser's permanent and estar is temporary. It's just not as simple as that, because there are lots of things that we would, and then people get into trouble. They think, oh, well, why is that estar? Because that's permanent. Or why is that ser? Because that's temporary. So I don't teach ser and estar like that. I teach it in the sense of the criteria that we use each one for. And I'll explain some of that as we do this, but the greatest depth, in this video is not to explain really in great detail the difference between ser and estar. It's presuming that you know the difference between ser and estar, or to test your knowledge of ser and estar. So I'll explain a little bit as we go along, obviously. Okay, so your first test, if you've done any of these videos before, you'll know the drill. These are the English sentences that you're going to have to translate as far as this GCSE test is concerned. So these obviously are things they expect you to know. They're quite tricky, some of them, and they look easy, but they're not. So anyway, I'll explain them as we go along. But first of all, here's the English. I'll hold it up and read it out to you so you can write it down. You need a pad and a pen. He is a teacher, number 1. Number 2, it is a chair. Number 3, it is late. Number 4, it is near here. Number 5, the traffic lights are red. And number 6, the car is red. And number 7, I am listening. Okay, so write them down. This is the time when you need to pause your video and have a go at translating those sentences as best you can using ser or estar. And now I'm going to hold up the Spanish and explain why it is ser or estar. Okay, so now I think the first one's quite straightforward. He is a teacher. es profesor. You could put in the el es profesor, but you don't really need it because you've got profesor. Sorry, profesor, not profesora. So we know it's a he. And this is profession. So this is one of the times that we always use ser. And as you can see, it doesn't fit into the permanent temporary thing because, you know, obviously anyone can change their profession. So for profession, always ser without exception. Okay, número dos. It is a chair. Es una silla. Now, I would say that can come under, if you know Micah Prince and Flommett's mnemonic, that could come under characteristic. It's a chair, es una silla, even identity, because that's what it is, because we use say, like if I was saying I am Vicky, I'd say yo soy Vicky. So I suppose in a sort of funny way, it could be like identity because it is a chair. That's what it is. It's not necessarily who it is, but anyway, it's a characteristic. That's what it is. Now, número tres, es tarde. This is sometimes one that confuses people. Anything to do with time. Es tarde, it's late. People say, oh, but it won't always be late, you know, and obviously it won't, but it's time. With time, we always use set. So it's quite straightforward if we're saying it's Friday, if we're saying it's 4 o'clock, if we're saying it's on Wednesday, any time, or it's next week, is ser, always. So es tarde. Número cuatro, we've got an estar. Está cerca de aquí. Now, this is location. And again, this is one that doesn't fit into the permanent temporary thing that people often think of. I expect that's exactly why these have been included in the GCSE test, to make sure you know that. Está cerca de aquí, it's near here. Well, it may always be near here, but it's location. So whenever you're talking about location in Spanish, so even if you're saying Madrid is in Spain, or something that will always be there, San Miguel is in Alicante, you know, whichever, it doesn't matter whether it's permanent or temporary, if it's location, it's estar, without exception. Now, again, número cinco, a little bit tricky. The traffic lights are red. Now, los semáforos están rojos. And normally we would think of as colours. If you look at Micah Print and Flommett's, colours are there as ser, but it is natural colours. So, for example, if the semáforos are red, in other words, the actual traffic lights themselves are red, not just on red. You know, they're on red, really, aren't they? So that's not a permanent colour, not a natural colour. Same as if we say bananas are yellow, it is ser because bananas are yellow. But if you have a particular banana that's black or green because it's overripe or not ripe enough, that will be estar because that's not the natural colour of that banana. Okay, so, and going on from that, then number six, número seis, the car is red, el coche es rojo, because that is its colour. It's not just the colour it is at the moment. It's just not a temporary state. It is its normal, natural colour. Okay, y número siete, I am listening. So anytime we're using an ing word, I mean, of course, in Spanish, we don't have to use an ing word. You could just say, escucho. So quite often Spanish people will say, like, I'm listening to you, I'm listening. You'll say, te escucho, te escucho. But of course you can say it in the way we like to say things in English, using the ing word, estoy escuchando. So anytime you do use an ing word in Spanish, for the I am, you are, etc. that comes before it, you will always use estar and not ser. So it wouldn't be soy escuchando. Okay, it just sounds completely wrong as well. And as you come on with Spanish and get better, you will know that that doesn't sound right. Okay, so that's that little exercise on Sarah and estar. But as I say, if you would like more practice with Sarah and estar, well, I've got lots of videos on here that explain about Sarah and estar in all the different tenses, which are reflections of the exercises, etc. in the books. And the books, of course, are available either through me and through the Facebook page or the website, or just send me an email if you want to order one, but also on any Amazon site. Okay, so now we're going to look at relative pronouns. Let's first look at what a relative pronoun is. Well, basically, it's so for example, it's what you use to join up. So if I was to say, oh, that's the man that I was talking about, that is a relative pronoun. That, not the first that's the man that I was talking about. Okay, this is a relative pronoun. And what I realised when I was actually, and other ones are whose as well. So that's the girl whose dog bit my dog. Yeah, so what I realised when I was doing this, I haven't done a video on this. I have not done a video on these relative pronouns. Or, you know, and it's not mentioned in the book either, so I can't direct you towards my books. But, yeah, so it's an idea for I will be doing a video on this in the future, just to let you know that. So basically, I think the best thing to do with these, if you're not sure about them, just have a go at translating them, see what you come up with and see what the answer is. And then as soon as I can, I will do a video on this particular subject. Because I feel like, you know, I've never done that. But anyway, okay, so here's your English to write down. Number 1, the book that I bought. Number 2, the town near where I live. Be careful with that one because it won't. It's when you say it in Spanish, it's said in a different way to how we say it in English. But I suppose that's all. Don't worry about getting them wrong. At the end of the day, we're doing these, or you're practicing these with the idea of getting them right at some point. So, the town near where I live. Number 3, tell me what's happening. Remember, these are different tenses as well. They're not all present tense. Number 4, I want to know everything that happens. And number 5, the man whose wife works here. Okay, the book that I bought, the town near where I live, tell me what is happening. I want to know everything that happens. The man whose wife works here. And it's funny, isn't it? Because these sentences, I think they look, obviously in English, when you look at them, they look so simple and you think, oh, that's easy. But when you actually sit down and start to translate them, they're trickier than they look. Okay, so I'm going to read the Spanish in a moment. So it's the time to pause the video while you translate them. And here's the Spanish. So, Número 1, preterite is the tense you need for the verb, the book that I bought. El libro que compré. So remember, we don't use the that like when you're saying that book, that house, that chair. When you're using a relative pronoun, it's que that you use. El libro que compré. The town near where I live is what we would say in English here. But notice in Spanish you're saying the town near to the that I live. You know, it's not a direct translation. So, el pueblo cerca del que vivo. Tricky, that's a tricky one. El pueblo cerca del que vivo. Número 3, we're using a different tense here. Tell me what's happening is imperative. Tell me. Dime. Dime lo que pasa. And again, this difference between que and lo que, I haven't done a video on, and I will be doing a video on. Dime lo que pasa. Tell me that which is happening, I suppose is the only way you can sort of translate it directly. But as I say, I will be doing a video on that. Número cuatro. I want to know what is happening. Quiero saber, present tense. Quiero, I want. Saber, to know, as in facts and information. Lo que pasa, that which happens or is happening. You could use está pasando there as well. And then number 5, which I know I've never done a video on, whose, the man whose wife works here. So look out for a video on these. El hombre cuyo esposa o mujer trabaja aquí. El hombre cuyo esposa o mujer trabaja aquí. So look out for a video on that. How did you do? Difficult. They're sort of simple but difficult, if that makes sense. They look like they should be simple, but they're the sort of sentences, I think, that do tie you in. And not sometimes you think, oh my God, how do I say that? Remember, if you're out there talking to people, don't get hung up about whether you should say cuyo. Just say the first, just say what you think, and they will understand you, I think, or you'll be able to get over what you say. Obviously, if it comes to a time when you're doing an exam, the GCSE board obviously expect you to know some of those, so that's going to come up at some point. Okay, so interrogatives or questions. How do we make questions in Spanish? I love making questions in Spanish because they're so much easier than making questions in English. Unfortunately, the fact that they're easier sometimes makes them difficult, if that makes sense, because you have to cut so much out. Once you get that knack, if you like, or that click for how to make a question, it is so easy because you don't have to use, in English we use a lot of extra what are called auxiliary verbs or helper verbs. Where do you live? Of course, in Spanish you just say where you live, and the you and the live is just one word, because you're putting the ending for the you on the end of the verb to live. So you end up with just donde vives. Whereas in English, it's 4 words. Where do you live? So they are actually easier. They're slightly different. The order is slightly different. If you have a preposition, in other words, a little word like to, with, at, etc. If you're making a question in Spanish, the prepositions go to the beginning. So instead of saying who are you with, you say with who are you? Okay, now again, how to make questions is a theme right through all my books, but it's explained in the most depth in the Break the Language Barrier Level 1 on page 44. But my method, if you like, is there's a lot of making questions and answering questions. Because to me, making questions is the key to keeping a conversation going. You can answer a question, somebody can ask you a million questions and you can answer them. But if you can't ask a question back, or you're nervous of asking questions back, the conversation won't last. So if you're wanting to get into a situation where you're having a natural conversation with someone in Spanish, you need to know how to make questions. Okay, so these are the questions you need to translate for the purpose of this test. Okay, número 1, where are you going? Número 2, what time will you be back? Número 3, when will he arrive? Número 4, how many friends does he have? Número 5, why did he do it? Número 6, who is with him? And número 7, Which is your favourite? So a little combination of the question words, which are all again in the level 1 book on page 44. Okay, so let's see how you've done. Now's the time to pause the video because I'm going to turn over to the next page and read you the answers. Okay, ¿a dónde vas? Where are you going? Now notice in Spanish you say to where are you going? So we have the a, because with the verb to go, ir, there's always an a somewhere. Only 2 exceptions, and that's going on holiday, which is ir de vacaciones, and going shopping, which is ir de compras. But nearly always, you know, I don't want to say 100% of the rest of the time because there's always more exceptions. But generally, you will need an a somewhere. And if it's in a question, the a is a preposition. So as I was saying earlier, a goes to the beginning. ¿A dónde vas? Same with number 2. What time are you coming back? Well, in Spanish, you have to say at what time are you coming back? So, ¿a qué hora vuelves? You could also have use regresar and say ¿a qué hora regresas? Número 3, when will he arrive? Well, this is future tense. ¿Cuándo llegará? Número 4, how many friends does he have? ¿Cuántos? So how many is cuánto, or cuánta, or cuántos, or cuántas? Has to tie in, this is tying in with the amigos. So if it was how many houses does he have, it'd be cuántas casas. But it's masculine, cuántos amigos tiene. Número 5, why did he do it? So got a little pronoun slipped in there. The it, so remember that pronouns go in front of conjugated verbs. ¿Por qué lo hizo? Preterite, why did he do it? Número 6, who is with him? ¿Quién está con él? Yeah, who is with him? Location, because you're talking about where people are. That's why it says estar. Y número 7, which is your favorite? ¿Cuál es tu favorito? And that is es, not está, because it's a characteristic. If it's your favorite, going back now to the ser and estar print and flummox, if it's your favorite, it's characteristic. ¿Cuál es tu favorito? Vale. Y está. Terminado. ¿Qué tal? How did you do? How was it? Did you get them all right? Anyway, the next one will be coming out soon. I am going to finish off this test, hopefully over the next couple of weeks, and then be able to go on to some other things. But I feel like I've started the test, so I've got to finish it now. We're going on in the next one. I think we'll be looking at the verb tener, saber, conocer, and then we'll be moving into the different tenses. Okay, so if you found this video useful, as usual, por favor, please give me the thumbs up. It's very useful to me. It's a free way you can help me out, as is subscribing, which really helps me out with the YouTube algorithms. Let me think. So yeah, remember, you can buy any of these Break the Language Barrier books on Amazon or through me. 4 levels, 1 to 4, from beginner to advanced. Also, of course, I do have some dual language storybooks that you can also order through me or on Amazon. All the links will be in the description box. And I just want to say, I don't know if you know, but I have a blog, Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, that I am in September releasing as a book, the unexpurgated version, about various experiences. It's sort of turning into a bit of an autobiography. I hope it doesn't bore anybody, but I hope, I'm trying to make it interesting and entertaining. So if you're interested in that, well, you can read my blog now, but if you're interested in the book that's coming out in September, pre-orders are €10. The book itself, when it's released in September, will be €15. But you can get a taste by going into my blog, which is in the description. The link is in the description, and that'll give you a taste of what it's about. It's just anecdotes, really, and different experiences of being a Spanish teacher and interpreter, and just generally it'll end up generally living in Spain, etc. Various things. So I'm hoping it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, a bit of both. So I'm trying to make it more upbeat than not, but life's just not all laughs all the time, is it? Okay, so take care, cuídate, and que tu Dios vaya contigo, y te veo en el próximo video. Muchas gracias. Adiós.